I'm CK. Today we've got another one from MOVYOOW. This is a carousel solder practice kit, so it's a little spinning carousel with LEDs and a motor and interesting things, I think, along the way. So we'll put it together, see if we can learn anything from it, see how much fun it is, and I hope you enjoy the video. The box, picked this up from Amazon for, I don't know, $15 US or something. MOVYOOW Carousel Solder Practice Kit, RGB LED Rotating Music Box Soldering Kit Project with 3D Music, DIY Musical Carousel Electronics Learning Kit for School STEM Education and Desk Ornament. New, made in China. They put an M instead of an N. Let's see what's in the box. Big old plastic thing. We'll get the box ready for recycling. And we'll try and get this bag open without being too much of a dope about it. Ah, that came open very well. Good, thank you. A USB cable to power it. And here we've got a geared motor. So that will be making the carousel rotate around. Let me see where the instructions are. Okay. Flashing LED carousel. That's the way it's going to look with 3 horses, bunch of LEDs on the top, and the rotating platform. Features: 24 LEDs, 3 music, automatic playing, adjustable rotation speed, on-off rotation, on-off music. And that all sounds good. What does it got for? It's got a KT148A music IC. Well, that's nice. And then any other, doesn't look like any other ICs. Okay. Looking at my battery is real low on my overhead camera. We'll get to that. Here's our LEDs, a bunch of them, and a bunch of screws tossed in with the LEDs. Let's light one of these up and see what it looks like. My LED buddy is missing in action right now, so I'm going to use my meter in continuity mode to do this. Get my probes, clip onto the negative lead, then touch the positive lead. Green, blue, red. So these are tricolor LEDs. So that's interesting. That'll be fun. Which means I wonder who's driving the different voltages, since we only have the one IC. We'll find that out at some point or other. Well, let's take a look at the board pieces. We've got, this looks like the top where we're going to put all the LEDs. And, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. Here's the middle piece, and these 2 rings are where the electricity is going to be connected, probably with a spring as it rotates around. The spring will sit there and just brush against that to transmit the electricity. Here's the actual board that's got stuff on it. Not much stuff on it. It's got a music switch, motor switch, looks like a pot for the speed and where the power comes in. And again, this is going to feed stuff up electrically. There's the music IC, it's surface mount, 2 small capacitors. Surface mount, but only 8 pins, looks pretty easy. Capacitor and a power connector. And little horsies. Little horsies. Now you'll notice that they are plated on either end and you can't see the trace, but that means there's a trace going up through there. So what's going to happen is this one, this will be like here, and it'll connect to here, and you solder them, and that'll create the electrical path to get the energy to the LEDs up on the top. Let's look at the parts bag. Keep losing my hat. Nothing left in the bag. Got our potentiometer, which is a B102. So that's 1 0 and 2 more zeros, so it's a 1K potentiometer. Here's the speaker. That's a nice looking speaker. That's better quality than I usually see on these kinds of kits. That's nice. Switches. Where's the IC? Oh, here it is. The IC is just kind of floating around in the bag loose. But that's okay. It'll be fine. A couple of decoupling caps, one resistor. Here's our electrolytic. And here we are. Here are the springs I was talking about. So these springs will brush against this metallic plating to transmit the energy, the electrical energy, to the upper part. So that's it. Doesn't look too complicated, and might have some interesting mechanical assembly to do, but that's it. I'll get the soldering iron heated up, and we'll get this thing put together. Okay, let's put this thing together. What we're going to do first, according to the instructions and according to my own sensibilities, is we're gonna, where to go? Gotta find, that's the wrong one, that's the wrong one, that's the wrong one, there's the right one. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do this music controller IC, the surface mount part. As you can see at U1, and I'm gonna do something here. I'm gonna zoom in better, and then change to manual focus. There we go. Now I'm using my thinnest solder, which is from MG Chemical. It's 0.025, and it's still got flux inside it, which is good. And first thing we're going to do, we're going to put a little dab of solder on one of the solder pads, like that. Then we're going to take our tweezers. Always have to have a good set of tweezers, or multiple sets of tweezers. I have a video on that. I might remember to link it in, I might not. Now we're going to look at the chip and see there's a dot that shows where the dot matches this dot right here. That shows us where pin 1 is on this chip. And I'm gonna get my head in the shot, and I don't have a hat on today, so you're gonna see my thinning hair at 66. I don't mind having a little thinning hair. So I'm lining up the pads, and I will reheat that little solder blob, and I just messed up lining things up, but that's okay. I can always adjust. There, the solder is firmly affixed. I'm going to pick this up, take a look at it, and we're a little too far to the left to get the access to the solder pads on that side, so I'm going to heat it up and slide it over again a little bit. I'm going to pick it up again. Yeah. Now we can get at all the solder pads, and I'm going to flip it around this way And what I'm going to do now is put some of my Chip Quick flux. It costs like $40 for a tub like this, a couple of ounces, but it lasts forever. So it's a fine investment. I'm going to rub some solder, some flux on there. This will keep the solder from, or help keep the solder from bridging between contacts. Now I will rotate it around it again a little bit. And then I'm going to put soldering tip between pins. Get that one done, that one's done, that one's done, that one's done. This one's not quite done good enough for me. And there we go. I'm going to pick it up again, take another look. They all look good. Now we'll repeat the process on this side. You notice I did the side that I hadn't done the lockdown pin on, because I didn't want to, because I've done it on the same side that I did the lockdown pin occasionally. And when I do that, of course, the first time I touch my soldering iron to get one of the other pins, it heats the lockdown pin up and it slides away, and I get grumpy. And I don't want to get grumpy at myself. Same thing again. Oh, that bridged a little bit. So we'll deal with that momentarily. And that bridged a little bit too, huh? Chip Quick didn't help me there. I'll get my solder sucker out. Clean that one up. And I cleaned that one up. And that should all be good. Let me pick it up and check. And looks good. Good. So that's done. Now I'm going to go back to automatic focus and back up a little bit. So that's the surface mount part. And as you saw, it's not too bad. There are certainly a lot worse. And it'd be a good intro, just 8 pins on one. Now, what are we going to do next? They would like us to install our decoupling caps, which are our 2 little 104s, 100 nanofarads. They go right here because they are providing decoupling for the IC. That's those 2. And while we're here, we're going to go ahead and put the resistor on. And it goes over here by the power connector. Now, what are we doing? Now we're going to put the screws on. And these screws are the stabilizers for the springs, and also allows us to pass the power along. It's got a screw gasket by tin as showing. I'm not sure. Oh, I see what they're saying. Flipping over to the whole side of my soldering pad. What we want to do is we want to solder that screw down for a couple of reasons. One, for stability. The other, so it gets a good solid contact for conducting electricity. And I'm moving the solder all around, and the screw is still hot. And that takes a little while for it to cool off enough for you to mess about with. And I don't think that's in right. No, it isn't. It takes a little while to get these on. So you want to glob a bunch of solder on and just have your soldering iron heated up. Wait for it to cool, which takes a little longer than a normal solder joint. And that one's done. We'll do the other one now. Those are both soldered down. So now we'll do a couple of other components on here. We want to do the electrolytic cap, which goes over here by the power connector. There's a plus sign for the long lead and a minus sign for the short lead. There's also a little white thick line showing where the thick line on the capacitor goes. And we'll go ahead and set this in place, the power connector in place. Flip those over and solder them. Use a lot of solder on that because that, of course, is where you're going to be putting the power connector in and pulling it back out more than once. So you want to have a lot of solder so it stays firmly in there. Now we're going to do the switches and the pot. And the switches are identical. Double checking, because the outline shows the switches leaning over, but they're not actually leaning over. So we'll ignore that. I'm going to get my little piece of paper, flip that over. Now they're not completely flat because the power connector is higher than the switches, so I'm going to do one pin on each. One's the music switch, one's the motor switch. One pin on each. Now I'm going to pick it up, press on the switch handle, reheat that solder. Oh, that went down. That was already completely down. Let me double check this one. That's completely down too. Good. So I'm not going to put the pot on yet. I'm just going to solder these guys up while I'm here. Okay, that is that, and then we'll put the potentiometer on there. Next, we're going to put the motor on. So how are we going to do that? Goes on the side with the... Where did I put... There it is. Goes on the side with the other components, because it's going to be kind of upside down like that. Oh yeah, it's hanging down so that the switches are exposed. You'll see when I get the rest of it put together. Put that screw in there. Put that screw in there. Of course, being sure that you're not pinning the wire under anything, because that would be bad. You'd get it together and you'd say, okay, now I got a solder wire, and you'd have to take it apart. The motor's installed. Now we're going to put the wire to the motor plus and the motor minus. They say you can trim the... I'll go ahead and trim these off a little bit. Now the red wire goes in the motor plus. Give them a little bit of a tug to make sure they're both in securely. And they are. Tuck that wire behind the switch. Okay, now we're going to put our uprights on. And what am I supposed to attach that with? Where are my screws to attach the... Oh, they're in this bag. They're in the bag with the LEDs. Well, that doesn't make any sense, fellas. And we're going to do it. I'll show you here in a second. We're going to put the spacer, which is the upright for this, so you can set on the ground on the same side as the motor, so it sits like that with the motor on the bottom. So it'll be sitting like that, and that's the drive shaft for all the action. Now they want us to put the speaker on instead of putting it on before. That's interesting. So we want the speaker to go here and plug in here, but they didn't give me any sticky stuff. No double-sided tape, no double-sided foam. Hold on a second, I'm going to turn the cameras off and go dig something out of my supplies locker. And I have a little double-sided foam pad here that from some past kit that I didn't use. You could use double-sided tape, one of these, whatever you happen to have. You could even use hot glue if you wanted, really. I'm going to put that here. I'm leaving the protective cover on for right now because they're still building it up. That's where the speaker goes. Now we're going to put the wires in beep plus, gets the red wire. Next, now we're going to do our fancy stuff here. So now I'm going to put 2 washers on the screws we soldered down. And that is where the springs are going to go. Because the springs, again, are going to go to the commutator rings there. And the screw isn't to, you don't put a nut on it. That's just, the screw's just there to make sure they stay vertical. And now we're going to do the commutator ring. So to do that, we're going to take this, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put screws through here. And put these little supports on them. And you'll notice these say VCC, VCC, ground and ground. That's where the power that's being transmitted through the commutator rings is coming from, like so. Now we're going to mount this on here, and we're going to screw the motor down. Screw this down to the motor, because it's going to kind of float. And I got to turn it sideways so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Tighten that up pretty well. And I'm looking in here and I can see the springs are on their appropriate commutators. I can move it. Don't try and move it too much because it's geared and you might go too fast and disrupt things. And next we're going to do, is that the way they really want us to do that? I don't know what I'm going to do here. Actually, I do know what I'm going to do here, but I'm trying to decide what's the best way. Now, we're going to put this pad on top, and again, it's got VCC, VCC, ground, ground, so you want those to be where you want to be. And I'm sorry, I'm looking to see. I don't know when he wanted us to tin those. Well, he doesn't want them to be tinned now, so we can go with strictly by the instructions, even though I know what's coming in a little bit, but I may as well go in order, won't I? That's VCC, so that's positive. Okay, so that's the platform. Now we're going to do the top, and I'm looking to see how they want them to go. Okay, so now we're going to put all the LEDs on, and We're going to take the LEDs and put them in here with the long leg in the square hole. Though, let's take a look at the LEDs. I'm going to bring my meter in for a minute, go into continuity mode, grab my leads. So continuity mode means it's going to beep when you get connectivity, but what that means is that there's a slight bit of current going through the leads. So I'll connect the negative side, and then we'll touch the positive side, and look at that. Red, green, blue, red, green, blue. Now you could test all the, thank you for beeping. You could test all the LEDs before you do anything to make sure they're all good and you don't have to change them out later. I'm not going to do that because I don't care. Now I'm going to go down to where the little wideness of the LED lead is, and then we're going to bend this over like so. And I'm going to solder this one down. Again, long lead goes in the square hole, short lead goes in the round hole. Okie dokie. Now I've just got to do that 20 or so more times, and I'm going to turn the cameras off while I do that because you don't need to see me doing the same thing over and over and over again. All the LEDs are installed, and as you can see, I got them kind of not all in sync with each other. I don't really care. You may want to be a little more even and careful on this. I was just whomping them on. And they gave us 3 extra LEDs, since of all the components in this kit, the LEDs are the most likely to not be good, but they very rarely go bad nowadays. Now, we're going to, right, they want them at 90 degrees, I'm not doing 90 degrees. So we're going to do some tinning here, because we're going to be putting the little horsies through here, and we will want to tin this so we will have a good way to solder them in place. I'm going to use some thicker solder than I've been using just to build up the solder piles quickly. And then we're going to do the same thing on both ends of the horsies. Now we're going to get to the part that will probably be the hardest for me, which is getting the horsies into their little holes here and have them all perpendicular and dandy. So let's see what we're doing here. Put that horsey there, heat up some of the solder, gotta get both sides, and it settles in, kind of like that. And I'm not sure that it's as far down as I want it to be, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not the best person in the world. There we go. That one went a little, that one went too deep in. Check the top. Yeah, that one went a little too deep in, but that just means I think I want to settle this one in a little further. Again, this is the hardest part of this kit, is to make sure these guys are lined up well. Ouch! Of course, setting the soldering iron on the tip of your finger is not necessarily the best thing to do, but I have burnt myself so many times soldering, I barely even notice it. And look, okay. This one is still down more than the up more than the others. See if I can pull it back a little bit. Now the next step is to put them all together on this. That's the hard part. Okay, I'm going to have this standing up to do this right, so you can't really see exactly what I'm doing. I apologize for that. And there goes my water heater. Water heater's back off so I can talk again. And I think we're okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my meter and go from the pads to the pads and check continuity. That's good. Check this one. That's good. And check this one. That's good. Now, one thing I probably would do if I were going to build this again is I would only tin one side and then solder the other side once I've got that all aligned, because that would make it easier for me to actually get them aligned. So that's what I recommend for you. Now, I don't know which way is on these switches, so we'll just make a guess. I'm going to turn this light off because we got LEDs happening. And I'm going to plug in our power, and we'll see how this little fella does. Yep, I was wrong. Okay, so that's on. Now we'll do the music switch. Don't hear anything. Do the motor switch, and it's not doing anything. Why is it not doing anything? So the commutator is working fine, obviously, because the LEDs are working, but these, oh, maybe I have to turn the speed up. Let me pick this up and listen. Nope, I'm not getting anything on these motors. Motor is fine. Connections are fine. Well, this is not making noises like I expect. Well, this is not, motor's not going round. It should, there's no reason for it not, there we go. I don't know what I did, oops. There we go. Now, as you can see, because I didn't know what direction it was going to spin, and I didn't even think about it, and the horsies are facing the wrong way. But that's okay. Let me dial it down a little bit. Still not getting music, though. Let me see if I can hear music. Nope, I'm not hearing the music. But the motor's working. And in fact, I don't know if I'm going to slow that down, gosh. I'd like it to go a little slower. That's what it's going to do. And that's it. Again, I don't know why the music isn't working. Let me take another peek down here just to see. I'm going to turn the motor off. Which one's the motor? I'm going to turn the motor off and see what we can do over here. All the pins on the IC are right. The polarity is right. The orientation of the chip is right. So I don't really know what's going on with the music. but that's okay. We got the main thing going on, which is the motor and the little horsies going around. And again, this potentiometer for control and spin is very, very touchy, sensitive. But that's what it does, and there you go. You can hear the screws scraping on the commutator rings, the springs scraping on the commutator rings. So that's it. That's what it does, minus the music, which is not working for unknown reasons. But it's a kind of fun kit, and I'd rather not have the music because it'd be kind of annoying. And the LEDs are changing into many colors. As you can see, they're combining the blue and the red to make yellow or orange, and the green to make orange, and some purple with the green in there, magenta. So that's it. Pretty much fun, and I hope you enjoyed the video.